The TPP is a Trans-Pacific Partnership. It's one of three new international trade agreements called the Three Big Ts. They include the TPP, TTIP, and TISA. Original negotiations started in 2011, but by October 5, 2015, the TPP had reached a finalized proposal. On February 4, 2016, the TPP was signed by the leaders of the 12 participating nations. These countries include the United States, Australia, Brunei, Canada, Chile, Japan, Malaysia, Mexico, New Zealand, Peru, Singapore, and Vietnam. Naturally, the TPP would enter into force 60 days after each country's legislature ratifies the agreement. At this time, U.S. approval is unclear because of President Donald Trump. There is, however, another way through which the TPP would be allowed to enter into force. If 2 years pass as of the signatures on February 2016 and the TPP has not been unanimously ratified, the following conditions need to be met. First, at least 6 nations will successfully ratify the agreement, and second, those 6 or more nations must represent at least 85% of the total gross domestic product, or GDP, of the original 12 nations. Here's the kicker. Since the US represents approximately 62% of the TPP GDP, and Japan represents approximately 17%, the TPP cannot come into force if either of these states fail to ratify the agreement. This means the countries to watch are the US and Japan. The TPP would lift taxes on imported and exported products and adjust quotas on certain goods and services, promoting a free trade policy between the involved nations, very similar to NAFTA. It would also remove current non-tariff blocks to trade and revise regulations and statutes so that they are standard throughout the participating nations. The TPP would amend current pharmaceutical patent laws as well as revise labor laws and environmental standards, particularly in Asia. All of these actions of the TPP are pretty standard for trade agreements, but the Investors' State Dispute Settlement, or ISDS, is one of the most criticized aspects of the TPP. The ISDS is an international tribunal through which multinational corporations can sue countries for alleged discriminatory practices. Other international trade agreements, such as NAFTA and CETA, include similar tribunals, and many companies have sued governments through this system, some successfully and others unsuccessfully. In 1997, Canada banned the import of MMT since the neurotoxin posed a public health risk. U.S. chemical company Ethyl Corporation, who manufactures the gasoline additive MMT, sued the country of Canada for their ban on the import of MMT and won damages of $15 million, and the government was forced to remove the ban policy. In 2010, tobacco company Philip Morris sued the country of Uruguay, citing that the country's anti-smoking legislation devalued its cigarette investments in the country. The tribunal ruled in favor of Uruguay and ordered Philip Morris to pay Uruguay $7 million plus all the fees and expenses of the tribunal. If entered into force, the TPP would be among the largest trade deals in history. The countries involved have a sum GDP of over $28 trillion and account for roughly 1/3 of global trade. Former President Obama has pushed hard for the TPP and has made its ratification a priority for his last weeks in office. On June 29, 2015, President Obama signed the Trade Promotion Authority, or TPA, into law. The TPA grants the president fast-track powers, which means any agreement he signs cannot be amended or filibustered in Congress. Critics cite the secrecy of negotiations and the TPA as reasons to be concerned about the TPP and what it represents. It wasn't until 2013 when WikiLeaks began leaking some chapters of the TPP to the public. The White House, however, defends the importance of a certain amount of secrecy while negotiating complex and sensitive diplomatic issues. The TPA will last until July 2018 and would extend to the next president, Donald Trump. But as of November 2016, he announced that he would withdraw from the TPP within the first 100 days in office. Supporters of the TPP have argued that by reducing barriers of trade, the TPP would allow the U.S. to increase exports within the region, thus boosting economic growth. In addition, the TPP aims to increase the standards for environmental protection and labor laws. It would also level the playing field for American manufacturers who struggle to compete with countries that have looser regulations and thus lower costs of production. This would potentially make it cost-effective enough to move jobs back to the U.S. that were previously lost overseas. Those with a more skeptical economic outlook on trade are concerned with threats over American job loss stemming from the opinion that the TPP looks too similar to NAFTA, which caused a trade deficit and is considered an economic drain. Many point out the agreement excludes a huge Pacific Rim player, China. They describe the TPP as part of a US geopolitical war, one that would reduce the trade dominance of both China and India in East Asia and also provide a trade alliance that would give the US an excuse to intervene in trade disputes in the oil-rich South China Sea, where China has been beefing up its military. It is argued that first the US militarily and politically encircled China through the pivot of Asia, and now the US is attempting to do it economically with the three big T's. All TPP participating nations, however, have indicated that other members can join in the future, and so far many countries, including China, have indicated an interest. Independent academic analyses and research groups have found that while the TPP would naturally benefit from China's membership, China's benefits are intangible. China instead has reacted by accelerating its own trade initiatives in Asia. Much opposition to the TPP centers on the ISDS. Opponents argue that the ISDS gives multinational corporations too much power and influence over governments. It is anti-democratic that the policies governments want to implement for the good of their citizens may be undermined by some corporations' bottom line. Moreover, the judicial system through which these corporations can sue governments is secretive and not accountable to the people, domestic firms or governments, and is available only to foreign corporations, never vice versa. ISDS has also been criticized because the US has never lost any of its ISDS cases, so it seems to be biased to favor American companies and trade over the rest of the world. On January 23, 2017, President Trump signed the executive order to withdraw from the Trans-Pacific Partnership. These are just the facts. Do you believe this was the right decision?